Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories. Hi everyone, it's Bayana and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston, and today we're discussing Chapter 23. Robyn is currently out traveling on the international railways of Atlantis, so she's not here to discuss this chapter with us, but she will be back next week, and you might hear, she's going to edit this, so, who knows if she'll pop in at some point. And let us check us in about the status of the international railway visit travels. Was it worth it? Would you do it again?
Knows. I had to spend the night in the train station. I'm assuming the international railways of Atlantis are trains. So yeah, that's what happened. See you next week.
So besides that check-in, we'll possibly get, let's talk a little bit about what we discussed on the last episode in chapter 22. So in chapter 22, we learned that the cops are being very blasé with what is going on with Quentin, because they haven't turned up any answers. That means to them they will not be investigating for any answers. And the story that they're giving to Mama Peters is, we've seen this all the time. Young Black men from these neighborhoods just get missing because they got things going on. You didn't know where his money was coming from. Very sus. You didn't know what he was doing for work. Very sus. So how about your son's just gone and we can't do anything about it, and we're not going to do anything about it. Amari overhears this conversation, gets really upset by it, was already in a place of doubting if she wanted to go back into the bureau after the way she was harassed. And then this spurs her and her mom's defeat about, like, how her mom seems defeated by this answer about Quentin, spurs her into being like, no, if the cops are going to investigate, I have to be the one who will come up with answers for my brother, because I'm the only one with a solid lead on where he might be, who cares enough to keep investigating. And this light under her is made even more is brightened even further by a conversation she has with Jaden, her neighborhood friend, who gasses her up. He's spitting game that Dylan only wishes he could. Like, it was very smooth for like what are they, like 11 or 12? Like, so smooth. Where and it's like from the heart, very much like, oh, like, I see you and you're doing it, and don't talk yourself out of who you are. And it helps Amari realize that she's been comparing herself to Quentin, who has an ability that she could never. Like, he's just like super. He has his whole abilities and skill set would make him be leagues above everyone. It's how he's a superstar and part of Vanquish in the first place. And so that leads her to some self-discovery and to quit thinking about herself in comparison, specifically to her older brother. But while she's having this realization and having this like really great moment with Jaden, she's goes back into her apartment. And that's the other thing I want to talk about with her conversation with Jaden. She was being a little risky there. She was just hanging her feet off the top of the
bro. And my feet are still tingling from that. Like,
she was just swinging
I'm still stressed about
it. Roof of a building. And I'm just really grateful that Jaden had her off that ledge, because that was a moment where I was like, nah, so you're doing things that, like, I get the impulse. I need you to rein that in. And so she goes from that risky behavior to back to her apartment and gets a message about someone else taking risk. Another musician who's taking risk are, it seems like, Moreau and his apprentice, who have decided they're just gonna like attack multiple people's homes, including the Van Helsings. And there's a feed and some video footage of these attacks, and Amari is taken aback. She immediately is messaging Dylan, but gets no answer. And that's how we end chapter 22.
Yeah. We also asked asked y'all if you were a magician, how would you use illusions to decorate your spare lake house? We didn't get a bunch of answers, but we did hear from Hal, who said that they wouldn't have a spare lake house because they're not rich, which, you know what? Fair.
I mean, sure. This is all conjecture. If you were to have
if
a
you were to be
spare
on Van Helsing,
house,
yeah, you know,
no?
just lying around. I get it. I definitely get it.
If you were designing a lake house on Sims, or like there's a phone game that I play where you can decorate like different home decors. If you're playing a game where you're doing a home decor, but you had magic to like enhance whatever designs you were doing, what would you do?
Mine would be a library. Would just be books everywhere. Maybe a dragon.
I can see that for you.
That's probably it. Although I guess maybe the illusion of having having books might be a little disappointing. So like maybe instead it would be there would be books, but then like the illusion would be like a dragon that's like sitting around guarding it, you know, like hoarding books instead of money.
Same. I probably do something similar. No matter what, I'm going to have a library. Like if I have just that money, there's going to be a library. But I think I'd probably do like my library would be like a library / study. So it'd have like desk and everything in there as well. And the magical element would be like, I would definitely do like a hidden door situation, which is like, you can do that anyway, magic or not. But I would have it activated by something that could be completely like, I don't know. You would have to really just know how to get in there to activate the hidden door. And then once you're in the room, it would look more like a gothic interior, like with like trees with Spanish moss hanging, and like you kind of have like a hybrid of indoor, outdoor in the same time. Like I would like that mix because like I like the feeling of like gothic outdoors, but I don't like mosquitoes, so I don't actually want to be outside.
I know that's right.
I just want all the great components of the outside without the actual like issues that are involved with being outside. Mm-hmm. That's what I would do for an interior.
That's super real. Yeah, yeah, that's super real. I feel like, yeah, the dragon, I'm trying to think, like, just very cozy vibes is really, really what I would want. So even like
I could see like you having like a dragon, like the guard, like it's like the dragon. It's like I know in the animated Disney movie of Aladdin where there's a tiger's head to get into like so that would be like a dragon head, right? And then you'd be like
you go in there and then you're like, oh, it's actually pretty chill in here. Like hard exterior makes it seem like makes you think twice before coming in. Mm-hmm. But then once you're there, it's chill.
Did Bayana give you permission to be here?
And then if so, sure, have fun.
Then right, we'll be good.
Literally. Yep. So yeah, just a reminder for folks, like when we have the questions, you can respond on Twitter, Instagram. We are we'll have like posts and in stories, and then on Twitter you can use #WizardTeam or reply to our tweet about it. But also if you're listening on Spotify, they have a spot where you can like reply. So you can also do it that way if you're on Spotify, and then we'll see the answers. So yeah. Let's get into this chapter. I feel like I forgot. Like I was waiting on this chapter, but I couldn't remember what chapter it was. You know, I was like, there's a point where like I really like this chapter a lot. It's super fun.
Yeah, whenever I first read this chapter, like okay, one thing about me, like the tropes that I like may not always be romantic tropes because I'm weird about romance anyway, so in character. But I always love a found family trope, and I always love a like mentor trope. And whenever this mentor figure shows up, well, I mean, I guess anybody could be a mentor, but I really hope that this character that shows up in this chapter ends up being more of a mentor figure for Amari, because it's just so cool what they're able to do.
Yeah, agreed. So Amari doesn't hear from Dylan until the next day. He calls her from inside the Department of Supernatural Health with an ugly bruise on his forehead. And then he kind of just explains how he and his dad were the only two who were at the house, so they were the only two who had to deal with the hybrids. Lara and their mom were touring this year's Heartland Crop Circle Art Festival, which honestly, I was like, it sounds cool. I love the little like mini like tidbits of just like world building that are like kind of inconsequential to the plot, but we just kind of get pieces of those. I always like reading that.
It makes you think about like the whole like theory that like crop circles are like made by aliens, and I'm like, is that the element where you see like alien art? Like, is that how?
Right. I was like, I wonder, like, is there like are y'all like surveying the crop circles from above or something? Like, are they maybe like in like a floating festival and they just kind of look and they're like, I see the like, are they like critiquing the art, or are they just like observing like what does that actually?
What are those things, like the sky sprint like shoes or whatever? They just like sky sprinting around
right,
with like a curator discussing.
Yeah, they're just like, interesting. This one evokes such like dark emotions or whatever. You know what I mean?
You can tell by the slants of the crop.
Right.
You're like, okay,
cool. So yeah, Dylan said he tried to fight them off as he ran to find his dad, but one clawed him pretty good. They barely made it out of there. But Dylan says, I keep thinking, what if everyone was home for the weekend like usual? Will we all have made it out? Morose people went after my family, Amari, again. And also says that like the attacks were all on old legacy families. So the Van Helsings weren't the only, like I remember at the end of last chapter, it wasn't clear. We weren't sure if it was like just the Van Helsings, or we know they have multiple houses, so it was just like their houses, but it was the Van Helsings, but it was also other legacy families. Billy Pogo's parents both died, which is really like, this was like, so he survived because he has unnatural luck. But this also, there's like kind of two thoughts I had when I was reading this, is like, one, this is like things are getting real, right? And I think even Amari kind of says it in a little bit further, is like, okay, like, there are actual casualties. People are actually losing their lives or losing their family members. On the other side, I was thinking about like unnatural luck and the fact that only protects Billy himself and not like his family.
Like,
or
if he
like
were truly lucky, his whole family would have came out of there.
Right.
alive.
That's what I would think. Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I would think for sure. But yeah, but he's lost both his parents, so he's not coming back to the Bureau for the rest of the summer. And then Dylan has, well, he's like, he again at this point doesn't know that Amari has decided to come back to the Bureau, so he's like, please tell me you're coming back. He's like, are we going to be Vanquish 2.0? We made a pretty good team the other day. So now they've kind of like solidified themselves as partners and as friends, I guess. I feel like we ended whatever the last chapter Dylan was in on, like, can't trust it. But
I mean, I still don't trust it. I never will trust it.
I think that,
and knowing what we know, I have notes, but I'm leaving it alone.
It's hard. It's so hard.
Evidence.
Like, at least like I feel like we got it out in our like Patreon bonus from last week. At least I got out my main things. I was like, but as we get closer to the end, it's going to be hard to like not spoil certain things with our commentary, which is interesting. Haven't had to do this before.
I just have notes, and I'm just like, I'm sure when we get to like those episodes, I'll be like, let me go back to chapter
literally
23 for this note that I had.
For real. So we get to Sunday. Amari's mom is doing a lot better than the night before. they don't really bring up or talk about what happened with the cops, and mostly just talk about how Amari's doing at her, in quotes, leadership camp. But so Amari kind of like tells her some things and not others. So she tells her how she's like first ranked in her group, but like doesn't talk about the fact that she's being bullied and ostracized, which it's like,
girls not even just bullying, like you had a whole hate crime.
Literally. And like I get it, because again, like it's one of those things that's really it's like frustrating and like really sucks that she feels like she has to do is like protect her mom in some ways. And it's not even protecting in like the physical sense. It's more in the like not wanting her to worry. It's like in the emotional sense. But then also in some ways it's protecting herself, because if her mom gets worried, then she's gonna pull her out, and there's like different levels to it, but just her feeling like she has to filter what information she's giving her mother in a way that a lot of adults have to do for their kids is like, it just sucks that those are considerations she has to make in the situation.
I think a lot of kids, I think there's a decent amount of kids who are thrown into similar situations. I think mostly, like usually in a similar situation of like, they know that their parent doesn't have the like bandwidth or like capacity to protect them in the way that they need to be protected. So they just kind of like, or like they don't want to engage their parents' protective radar. So they're just kind of like, I'll keep this on a low and I'll figure out how to deal with it myself.
Right.
Because I'd rather not. And I think especially with her mom, it talks about how, because her mom, like the night before, right, she kind of like cries herself to sleep. Like Amari hears her mom like crying herself to sleep. And then it says here that like her mom worked a shift earlier this morning before dropping Amari off. So she went from crying herself to sleep, going straight into work, coming back home, and then dropping Amari off. So Amari just like feels her mom's energy levels just like mad low. She's defeated about Quentin, and she's like trying to protect her mom, and by not telling her mom about what's going on with her, which is so sad, because like you like when you care about someone else, right, when you love them that deeply, you want to like make sure you're doing whatever you can whenever they're having a low moment to kind of keep them from going any lower. So it comes from a very protective place, but it's like also limiting Amari's ability to have any protection in the moment where she needs protection as well.
Right, exactly. And then it also is just like Amari not being able to like confide in her mom either about like her nerves, right? Like she's worried about how she's going to be received when she comes back. There's only 11 days left to the next tryout, so she's worrying about like, is she going to get enough information about Quentin before then? Is she going to like be good enough to pass that tryout? Like there's just a lot of things happening, and like her mom notices her like kind of nervous energy, but when Amari brushes her off, she doesn't really have the energy to like push further than that. So it's just like, yeah, it's just it's a sad situation, honestly. Just like wish they could both get hugs and be taken care of, pretty much.
Like I feel like I'm annoyed by to be honest, I'm annoyed by Agent Magnus or Fiona for not like at least having some level of like bureau therapist or counselor available for Amari and her mother. Like even if they had to disguise that like prior to Amari being part of the bureau, like something to like give them the opportunity to like one, set up a way to figure out the family like consistently if they ever have any contact from Quentin, so they kind of like have a note to like probe into that. But also like they're going through it, like they're gonna have a missing family member, they need someone to talk to. Like you have bureau resources, use them.
And like no closure. Like Amari at this point has information, and so I think that helps, but like beforehand she didn't have any information and no idea what happened other than that Quentin is gone. And it's at this point it's the same with her mom. Like nothing has changed for her mom.
At least give them like a coping mechanism or something. Some sort of support.
Yeah. So Amari walks into the hotel. She keeps her head down as she moves through the lobby into the elevator, and stands all the way in the back behind a couple of mummies headed for the Department of the Dead. And
I want to say, I had a note here, and this is maybe it could possibly be a question later. Is as soon as I heard about the Department of the Dead, which I feel like is the first time we actually get note of the Department of the Dead, I immediately thought of Wednesday Addams and being like, oh, that's definitely the department that Wednesday Addams would be in, would be the Department of the Dead.
Definitely. I'm so curious what these mummies look like in the known world, like what their like glamour is. I'm just very curious what they're looking like walking onto this elevator. So after they leave, Amari asks the elevator for a few minutes to think. So she's just trying to like, get herself back in the game pretty much. She thinks back on what she's learned so far about Moreau's apprentice trying to trade Quentin and Maria for Moreau's release and then possibly the Black Book. The Bureau refused. Moreau's apprentice has been attacking the Bureau with the hybrids, including the attack from the other night. Moreau says the reason Quentin was kidnapped was because he found something Moreau's apprentice wanted. And Lara said that Maria was helping him even though they weren't partners anymore. So the only clue right now is the calendar entries from Quentin's computer about contacting a KH and then meeting Director Horus. So Amari tries to make an appointment. Well, first she just tries to go to the Department of Good Fortunes and Bad Omens, but you can only access that department by appointment. So Amari schedules one, and the soonest she can speak to Director Horus is like
Let's
the
also,
middle of
I just
next
wanted
week.
to note this too, because this is very much like in my planner mind how like useful this was. I noted how like the elevator notified Amari that it was only available by appointment, but also booked the appointment as an elevator.
Right.
And I'm like, that is helpful. Like, who needs Google Calendar when you have these elevators to just be like, oh yeah, book me an appointment with the director.
Yeah.
Do that.
So yeah, I definitely noted that too. I'm like, that's super helpful because if you're just being told that like, oh, we can't do it, like you can't get in or whatever, it's like, please give me solutions and then let's like solve the problem. And like next week is long, it's a lot of time to wait, but at least I know and I handled all
At
that
least you know they're on
business
the calendar
right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure Robyn will have a different opinion on that, but personally, from the Enneagram 1 INTJs on the squad, we love this. We love to see it.
I also want to and like to be fair, like I'm not an AI person. Like I have a Fire TV, and I'm really annoyed by the fact that I know that at any point it could be just like monitoring me. And I do get really annoyed whenever my my Galaxy, I'll be talking about something and then mysteriously ads that I see on social media will be like about whatever I like spoke about. I'm like, I hate that.
Instagram
like I understand. I understand it. But just you book the appointment
in the elevator
right after I talk about needing an appointment.
It's great. It's great information. So Amari takes the elevator the rest of the way to the dormitories. And then here she's accosted by Lara and Kirsten, who's like, "Why are you here?" Amari's like, I'm here to be a junior agent and I'm going to find my brother and hopefully your sister. Lara says, my sister doesn't need any help from a Peters. Got that? You just focus on your own dumb brother. And then
first off, like, what is Lara doing there? She doesn't even live there.
Doesn't live there, and also it's not investigating her own sister's disappearance. So, like, mind you, like, if you are not gonna help, you really don't.
Like, what are you doing? First, what are you doing here? Two, what are you doing for your sister? Give me something.
Literally nothing. And then here comes Kirsten, who for some reason decided to put her nose in somebody else's business instead of minding hers. Is like, guess you thought those hybrid attacks were fair payback for the pictures somebody left on your wall. Also, she says somebody, like, what, is this a confession? Like, Amari's like, are you serious? I had nothing to do with that. So you say, says Lara. Kirsten is like, watch your back, freak. And Amari's like, what's that supposed to mean? Exactly what it sounds like. answers Lara. So now they're like threatening her, and I just need them to go. Like, why are you here?
I feel like y'all got a lot of mouth for
like, what are they
the
actually gonna
whole
do?
point.
Like, come on.
Like, you got a lot of mouth for institutional backup that you got. Like,
Right.
but let's see if you really didn't have your parents ready to like stick like to throw me out of here. How big and bold would you really be?
Right. Bertha notices and like calls for them to break it up, but she's all the way down the hall. Amari is like, I'm not scared of you. She says first, I can't let that be the end of it. I won't let anyone intimidate me anymore. Which I love. It's like she was shaken after her last encounter, and so like seeing her make this like conscious decision to like stand her ground in the situation.
That's because like she's like in a place of like, if I'm gonna be here, I can't let this stuff keep getting me. Like,
I have
this
to
stuff will
like
get to me if I don't nip this in the bud.
Exactly. So she says, I'm not scared of you, and Lara says, you should be. And again, why? What are you gonna do?
Besides calling your father,
Like,
the inventor of toaster strudel up in here, what do you really have for me?
Oh my gosh. Just, ugh. She's the worst. So Elsie arrives at the dorm just before lights out, and because she was with her guardian helping those who were hurt by the hybrid attacks. So because of that, she's exhausted. They don't really have time to talk because Elsie goes right to sleep. So when lights out comes
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Because I got insulted and I wanted to make sure that this insult was acknowledged for how big of an insult it was. Whenever before Elsie hops in, whenever she has this exchange with Lara, and then Amari says, I'm not scared of you, it says that Lara spits, you should be. She spit.
I assumed that she like, because I've seen that as like a,
I get it.
yeah, I don't think she's like literally spitting, because it's not two separate actions. Like the way that it's written as like she spits the words out as opposed to like literally spits. But either way,
I just want to note that Lara is highly disrespectful, and she really does deserve any licks that she gets.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, Amari doesn't go to sleep right away. She's reading Noteworthy Agents, Heroics, Scandals, and Everything in Between. She's using Elsie's sneak handle to read because she doesn't, want to disturb her friend who needs rest. She reads Vanquish's long entry, skims through Agent Magnus's paragraph to find his talent for being tough-skinned, or how his talent for being tough-skinned enhanced to steel-skinned, after touching the crystal ball, which is like a cool little tidbit. And
it's giving Pokemon.
Yeah. It really is. I never thought about like the what do they call them? Evolutions? Did I say that? I've not watched Pokemon or interactive Pokemon since I was like,
yeah. But also like if it's like some Pokemon, like they go from like being rock Pokemon to steel Pokemon if you give them a certain stone. So you go from being like already tough to like rock to like boom, steel.
Yeah. Peeped. Okay. Tight. And then something about how Agent Fiona nearly caused an international incident when, as a junior agent, she greatly offended the origami hive mind by insisting that scissors beats paper in rock, paper, scissors, which is wild because, like, scissors does beat paper. Words. Scissors.
How was that brand new information?
The origami hive mind, I think they just do what they want, and it's probably just offended at the thought that anything could defeat paper. That's my assumption, but yeah, I don't know.
Feel like
obviously, but
and then also this hive is the origami hive mind. Is that like, what is it called? Like the Spider-Verse, like what is that called? The spider web or whatever, basically, like that the all the different spider people belong to.
Oh,
that Madam, yeah. I feel like that's like, is that what the origami hive mind is? It's like there's like all these people around the globe, different realms and dimensions, and they all belong to this one origami hive.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so much. That's the
Question.
thing. Like he keeps dropping these little tidbits, and it's like I have a lot of questions and no answers.
I'm like, is there like, I'm hoping that like Amari's book where she's reading this, like, you know, when she's there's like an index with like notes for like further information about these little, like, there's an asterisk beside it with like a definition, because I'm like, what is that? What does
What
that
is
mean?
that?
Like, there's
Yeah.
no way I could have read that as a like a trainee and been like, okay, I didn't answer.
Right. Like I need to know what like who the what.
Do I need to be concerned about paper cuts too, on top of everything else?
Right. So there's a light knock on the door that Amari answers, and there's a pretty girl in a white flower tiara who standing there, and she says, "Hello, Amari. I'm here to escort you to the Department of Good Fortunes." She grins wide, and bad omens. Her face falls. Now, I just love the drama here.
Yes.
I swear.
I miss, like, I live for like, it's more the description goes on, I live for it. I just continue to live.
Yeah. So it turns out that she's been granted a special top priority appointment by the chief herself. Something about ensuring that Amari being here won't bring doom and despair to the Bureau. So, and then Amari asks, if I wanted to ask Director Horus something important, could I? And the girl says, of course, but maybe wait until the end so you don't interrupt the show. Now get dressed and bring your raincoat. So yeah, so turns out we don't have to wait until next week. We can go now.
In the middle, after lights off for the whole dorm.
Right.
So
She's supposed to be asleep, but she was, I guess, you know,
right.
someone told her. She was
she
like,
lucked
you know
out
what?
that she was studying at that time. She had a sneak candle to keep her awake while she was studying, because, like, what if she was knocked out?
Man, she would have missed it. It would have been out of pocket. Love B&C content? Want to see the tricks behind the treats? Every month we drop behind the scenes and bonus content on our Patreon. Baddies at any tier get access to notes, process videos, and podcast outtakes. Support us on Patreon at any tier by going to patreon.com/blacknerdscreate. So Amari goes to the closet where she finds her favorite pair of jeans, a jet black I Heart Books t-shirt Quentin got her last year, with black sneakers, and a bright yellow raincoat that already has her Moonstone badge pinned to the front. So like this closet is really the closet is really, you know, doing what needs to be done. They said, "Oh, I overheard you might need a raincoat because it's gonna rain." So
I feel like the closet, like, as soon as like the same system that the appointment was made on with the elevator, like the closet got the memo that the appointment was changed to be that night and what the conditions were, and the closet was like, bet, okay, I got it ready.
Right. And I love that. Magic is great. So Amari dresses, turns off the sneak candle, and then follows the junior fortune teller escort. She wears a fancy white dress that glows in various places. She says that she made it herself and that the secret is to weave Christmas lights into the fabric. Her name is January. And she twirls and curtsies and introduces herself as January, and then Amari tries to curtsy back, which I think is adorable. She's like, I'm in my raincoat and my jeans, but I'm gonna make it
like,
work.
I can't possibly match the same energy, but I can try.
Yeah,
I give an effort to matching this energy.
Right. So they go through the halls of the youth dorms, and more kids are slipping out of their rooms. One girl emerges with a purple velvet cape and crown. A boy skips into the hallway in a thick fur coat, a large pair of antlers perched atop his head.
Yes.
And that's kind of giving like Where the Wild Things Are to me.
Yeah.
A little bit. So they're all from the Department of Good Fortunes and Bad Omens, and their dress code is to wear whatever makes them happiest, which I love. Like the closest I've gotten, like one of my old jobs, our dress code is pretty much like whatever made us feel comfortable, which was like great because and now I work from home most of the time, so I don't really have to think about dress codes, but I like the idea of just like wear whatever you want, if that's like a Christmas light dress or antlers on your head, like, do what you want to do. And especially because they're kids, like.
But also, like, they have to be out here at night, and
right.
they have to be like not only is it about good things, but it's also about bad omens and good fortunes and bad omens. So you're probably hearing about crappy things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if the directive is what's going to make you happiest, there must be a very big intent behind like making sure you're keeping people upbeat at some level,
right.
while they're going through all this crap. As a communications researcher, one thing that I've been tasked with before is looking through information about like white supremacy and discourse. And as someone who does not want to be tasked with looking at hate speech, I contradicted that out because I was like, I am not going to be doing that. And one of my former colleagues was telling me that like one of her first things that she had to do, and she's a Black woman as well, was look through a lot of like hate messages, like hate tweets and hate discussions. And it's like that takes a lot out of you whenever you know that you're like, you may not be this, like, there is sometimes a specific target, but for the most part, that kind of hate is like includes you and people that you love, and you're constantly reading that. So I can only imagine being like a kid and coming across like these bad omens and stuff, and like the weight of the world and how like big and impactful these things can be. And whatever little things can help you from like getting like can have some level of like lighting up your day after going through whatever that bad stuff is, like you definitely need it. So I'm already down with whoever director is. If Director Horus is the one who made that directive about the dress codes or whoever, I'm very glad that's a part of their directive, because who knows. But I also love it because it means that this department seems to be giving like fashion, seems to be giving like
literally
avant-garde,
whimsy. Like honestly, right now, like the Department of Good Fortunes and Bad Omens is like up here, and the Department of Supernatural Investigations is like all the way down here. Like they're in these like boring gray suits and like got your little sneakers, whatever. Like they get to dress however they want, and they get to be free spirited. I love that. A lot of them make their own clothes, but if you go to the Du Bois clothing website on the other net, you can almost always find exactly what your mind has dreamed up, which is also amazing. Like I love this chapter because it just gives the like it moves the plot forward, but it also just gives the like whimsy, and like it's just very like pleasant, I guess. To me, like this
and it explains a little bit about why Du Bois is so expensive, probably because it's like, can you imagine like having fits for like so many individual people's dreams, like what they might want their dream wear. I don't know why some people's dream wear was what Homeboy was wearing in chapter 1, but
right, his fuzzy whatever suit,
or what Amari had to wear looking like a clown in her own neighborhood. I don't know why those were dreams, but
somebody
dreamed
them.
Somebody.
So Amari realizes she's never seen anyone dressed like this during the day, so we kind of find out that most of them work during the night, which is not unusual. They're the Department of Dreams and Nightmares, Department of the Dead, and the Department of the Unexplained. All have night shifts instead. So there's like a whole bunch of kids that she doesn't even see during the day because they're probably asleep. And then the Department of Supernatural Health is open 24 hours.
Because emergency services.
Yeah. So like that, yeah, just more world building about the Bureau.
I just really hope that the Department of Dream and Nightmares have an obligation to play Beyonce's Sweet Dreams at least like once a week. Like, not enough that it's annoying, but enough that you're like, this is where you are.
Yeah.
You are here.
Yeah. Maybe like the elevator music as you get into it, you're like, oh, okay, I know where I'm at. So there's a girl dressed as Santa Claus who rushes over to January. clutches both of her hands and says, "Let me guess, strawberries?" January giggles and says, "You're always getting your futures and histories mixed up. Strawberries Jubilee was my name yesterday. Tonight, I'm January Winterfrost." So that's another thing. This girl can just change her name every day. And nobody blinks an eye. I love this place. Like, I don't know that I would want to work here necessarily. I don't think that it's like actually like a good fit for like my sensibilities, but it is a delight to read about. And like they just seem very like chill.
And then also there's like a bunch of camaraderie between them. They're not like,
Mhm.
there's not one being like, ugh, there's the one who's always dramatic, always changing her name. Like, oh, gross. Like, she just wants to be different.
Right.
Like, they're just like, they're all very like supportive of each other's quote unquote oddities. Like,
Right.
they're just like, like very, and I love that.
And even like Amari, like none of them are giving her any weird looks or like singling her out in any way. They're like way more interested in all the costumes. Somebody's dressed as a blue balloon. So like it's just that they're in this whole other kind of, they just have this whole other attitude and like culture within their department that is honestly like a breath of fresh air at this point.
I also probably feel like it comes from like the scope of their department. Like they're
Mhm.
like miles above, like their brain has to be galaxy brained because they're thinking about these big futures,
Right. And like you
history,
can't really have, I
omens,
mean, I'm
fortunes.
sure somebody could try, but like I think the idea is that if you're looking at these things, there are like objective bad omens and objective good fortunes, but then there's also stuff in between or like things that you can't know until you actually look. So I think they're also not really tripping off Amari until somebody tells them they need to worry about it. You know what I mean? But also I don't know if they're the ones who need to worry about it. It seems to me like they just see the fortunes and then they're like, this is what it says. And then they
Like
can
I'm gonna just like, and I'm gonna like translate this. I'm gonna interpret what I can, and you're gonna. This is the answer. This is what I got for you.
right. Yeah. Um So yeah, so they get into the elevator, Lucy, the elevator, um, and January explains that Amari's off to meet with the Starlight Shaman himself. Lucy says Director Horus sure has a dreamy voice. So I'm like, not this kid in the elevator crushing on this grown man. What a world. Like January blushes. I'm like, y'all,
Yeah,
calm
y'all.
down.
This man must be like his voice must be giving like what is it? Uh what is it? Radio station late night called like the
Like, I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name.
oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot because I haven't listened to a radio station in so long.
Yeah, me either.
Uh with a late night voice, like the deep
Mhm.
voice, like
Mhm.
welcome to blah, blah, blah. Like you're like, oh
Exactly.
crap.
You're like,
Like
ooh.
his voice is giving that because everybody's just blushing and an elevator is like, oh
An
his
elevator
voice.
is like, oh my god, swoon.
Like, can you imagine how she's like flirting with this man whenever he gets in the elevator? She's like, how you doing?
Right. And what is the
Trying to
director
get him to
supposed to
talk.
do
She
with
can hear
that?
his voice.
What is the director supposed to do with a flirty elevator? Like, let's be real. um So, the elevator doesn't descend deeper into the depths of the bureau. It actually goes up. They go through the Vanderbilt Hotel, um, and basically go to the very top. So the doors open to a huge circular room that Amari realizes must be the inside of the large golden dome up top the hotel. So that's like also interesting that obviously like the depths of the Vanderbilt Hotel and the bureau are at this point unknown, but it also, and I think we saw earlier when Amari went to meet Magician Girl, like one of the elevators went into like the closet
A
of one of the
private room.
hotel rooms. So like clearly the bureau has like strategic, you know, um spots within the hotel itself, but then also the fact that like the top floor is a part of the bureau and not um the hotel is also like pretty cool.
I wonder
Um
about that because like a lot of like, and this is business brain me, I guess.
mhm.
A lot of hotels host like events, like rooftop events, and like especially like weddings or like big stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. I wonder if there's ever been someone who's like has not been someone who would from the bureau who has been interested in me, like, oh, could I rent out the dome for an event? And they've been like, no.
No.
Like, dude, how do they keep people from being interested in like using that
Maybe
space?
it's like, maybe it could be like it's a private thing, or they could. I feel like there are ways you could excuse it, but I'd be curious what their excuse is.
I just feel like there'd be like a rich a-hole that would be like, no, I demand to know why I can't use, you know what I
Right.
mean, the place. And they probably just
Like
like wipe
maybe,
his
but
dick.
it could be like maybe it's disguised as like a penthouse or something, and it's like no, somebody lives here. I don't know. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like I could see something, but I still think it would be
Mhm.
really funny to have to deal with that as like a thing. But I'm sure also they probably have like if that became too much of a
Reflectors.
problem, yeah, or like in Men in Black they have the like little things that make you forget. So like be like you don't, or like a Jedi mind trick, like you don't want to have your wedding here.
Yeah, I wonder if like it's like if you are not part of Bureau and if you start getting curious about the dome, you suddenly start having like tummy troubles. You're like, oh crap, I
Right.
gotta go. Like something about you're like, oh, I don't actually care about that thing anymore because now I have problems.
Exactly. Um sorry. One second. So yeah. Then so yeah, so the dome is split into halves. So the walls on the right show cute furry animals in green meadows filled with flowers of every color. There's happy cherubs taking aim at grinning couples. Children laugh and dance. And then on the left side, there's ugly monsters twisting themselves around dark spaces filled with angry green eyes. Some bear sharp fangs, other have sneaky grins. Everyone on that side looks sad, terrified, or furious. Um, and so Amari's just kind of like looking through. She's hoping that her visit falls on the good fortune side of things. Um, there's a big white pillar in the middle of the room and a black staircase that wraps around it, that leads to the viewing end of a telescope stretching to the ceiling. Most of the room is filled with curved tables arranged in concentric circles around the pillar, kind of like the solar system. And there's a walkway that leads straight from the elevator to the pillar. So they go to the pillar, they're passing stations spread out on the tables. And basically it's just like a really cool, it just looks cool. I don't know. Like I just really like this place. And I just feel like
I'm like, I don't know that I would fit here.
no, but
However,
I
I
really
could
feel
maybe
people
I do.
vision.
Like I would just want to hang out. Like I would make a reason to be here. I don't know what the reason would
Yeah.
be, but I would want a reason
Yeah.
to be here.
It just sounds so much, it just sounds so fun. There's some tables with crystal balls, some with tarot cards, others have bowls with small bones inside. On the bad omen side, there's a book called Cursed or Blessed with Bad Luck, a subtle but important difference. There's also a fire that's burning for pyromancy. So apparently if you like concentrate really hard, sometimes you can see visions and glimpses of the future in the flames. They are January explains that they're trained in 12 different methods of fortune telling.
I love it. If you
I
want to
just like,
actually have an area of study, you need to specialize, and like
yeah.
there's multiple methods to specialize within.
It's like you study them
But I
all and
also
then you
love
go to the one that you feel like makes the most sense, you know?
And then as like a fantasy person, I'm gonna always see another fantasy property within another property. So this pyromancy gives me Lord of the Light from Game of Thrones, where you just like stare at the fire and start having visions. Like
Mhm.
I know it's like a thing, pyromancy is a thing, but however the way that it was explained to me, I immediately got like um the Red Lady and what was the name?
Mm.
The
Stannis?
Lord Boros or whatever, the
I don't know, they got a
all
lot
I
of
know is
names.
it just reminded I'm like, do they just be staring at the fire and
Right.
then speaking with the fire sometimes, and then
Mhm.
they come out with their visions, and I'm like, I wonder, like, do they have protective goggles for people? Because you
Right.
can't be like,
How long can you stare at light
how long are we doing this,
where you're
y'all?
like, yikes. Um So they go around the pillar, and then Amari spots a doorway with a plaque that reads Office of the Director. They pause in the doorway. The office is pretty empty. There's no desk or chairs or anything on the walls. Only a big dark-skinned guy in deep blue robes and a matching blue kufi, embroidered with silvery stars. He has his back to them on a wide blue carpet with silver trim. And he says, "Hello there," in a deep, rumbling voice, and the sound makes Amari smile. So clearly, something's going on. He sounds like Barry White or something. Like he's.
Is it Midnight Storm? Is that what it is?
The Quiet Storm?
Quiet Storm.
Yeah.
That's what he's giving.
He's definitely giving the Quiet Storm. It's like Amari says that his voice is like far off thunder. So, you know, I think we nailed it. So Director Horus stands and turns with a swish of his robes. He has golden eyes, and a neatly trimmed goatee. He thanks January for escorting Amari, and asks her to check the conditions. January glances at Amari and says, "He always guesses my name right," which again, that's probably why she got this little kid crush on this man. He says, she's like, "He never gets my name wrong."
Like the openness that this department has to like expression and both like clothing, but like in like name and stuff should also probably align with like gender and other things as well. So I can really see this department being very like supportive to people who are like queer, non-binary, and like are just like fluid, like just any level of fluidity. And I could see how this would be a department that would appeal to so many people who just like want to embrace the fluidity of their identity in any way. And I love that for January, that means like a name change every day. But like, I just wonder what the capabilities are for other students who really just like need a place where they can just be whoever they want to be at any given time.
Yeah. Also, so this kind of also makes me wonder, like, this could also be another possible question is like, what would you wear if you were in this department? Like, what would be like the outfit that made you happiest? That would be fun. Okay, so Horus has Amari take her shoes off and sit on the carpet. And then she asks if he decides that her being here is a bad omen. Does it mean that she'll be kicked out of the bureau? And Director Horus says, "Don't worry, the reading is merely a precaution." Atlanteans like Chief Crow see every oddity as an omen for calamity. So when a magician shows up in the bureau around the same time it's being attacked, it's only natural the chief would want answers. This guy, man, I wish he was here on the first day when everybody was all up in arms and being.
I mean, I feel like because isn't the guy who was had his head there but wasn't there in body? Wasn't he also from this? Is he not the overall?
No, he was the Department of Unexplained.
Is that not is it not encompassed like in this department?
No, okay. Different one.
But
I think the ones that are very
have, like similar vibes, like chill out.
Yeah, I think it seems like the departments where they're like, you know, who knows what can happen, are very much like go with the flow. They're like, whatever, you could be here, you could be dangerous, you could not be dangerous. Even if you are, maybe we keep you around. Who knows? Like I appreciate the openness.
I feel like that comes from the same thing of like being like looking at things from like the sky level and being like, you know, like have perspective. Like you're getting up in arms for this thing, and there's a lot of things we actually need to be like just let loose. And embrace the fact that we could be thinking about some other things as well. Like, where does this fit in the overall grand picture and grand scheme of things?
Right.
Should we really devote so much energy into this when we really need to worry about like the greater scheme? Does this suit the greater purpose? Like, I love that for them that they're. I wonder how much. I wonder what the tensions are between departments when you have these bigger picture thinkers versus those like I wonder what the tension is between the departments, and if there's like ever been some like, oh, like we don't talk to them because they never really care about the things they need to care. It's like, no, you need both sides of this. You can't just have the people who are always up in arms for every little pressure.
Right. Definitely. Okay, so then Amari's like, so you don't think me being here is a bad omen? And Horus says, I've learned to wait for what will be revealed to be revealed.
Big picture.
Yeah. So January confirms that it is pouring outside. Horus grins and says perfect. Then he stands and stretches and asks Amari if she's ready for a ride. He tells her to stand next to him on the center of the carpet. And January passes the director a long silver staff. And then the director Horus shouts go right as Amari is realizing that they're on a flying carpet. The carpet comes to life, bucks and wiggles, and then jumps forward, bending at the edges to fit through the open doorway. They fly in fast circles around the top of the dome, while a crowd of upturned faces cheers them on, which I also love how they just like stop whatever work they're doing and they're like, yeah, let's go.
But I mean, January did say like ask after the show, so everybody knew that. I think they were all expecting a show, so I feel like they were in there just like having popcorn and you're just looking up like, yeah,
right, like I'm ready for this. And like I think that's hilarious. Everyone else is like waiting on Amari. They're like looking at her and being all like angry because she's a magician, and these kids are like, okay, I'm waiting for the like like waiting for her to get here so she could watch the show. Like I love that. I love that.
Like it's a rainy night. Oh, this is a show night.
What's going on? Ready. It's going down. Like, yeah. It's this place is honestly delightful. It's very it's a nice change of pace after all the like doom we've had for the last couple chapters. So so a panel slides away in the ceiling, and Horus spins his staff until it becomes an umbrella that he flicks open with a flick of his wrist. They dash out into the blinding rain and basically just keep going higher and higher. Amari's holding on.
I just want to say, as a person who has a problem with heights, I would want to have consent asked before I'm put on a magic carpet.
Let me know we're on the magic carpet and that we're about to go above the clouds.
Can you just tell me that what's gonna happen tonight includes me? Because I can sit instead of standing, because I think I'm gonna need to sit. Like I don't think I would be able to keep myself together
if I'm standing. Yeah,
and I wouldn't be able.
Yeah, I'm like, why can't they sit?
Right?
I would be down if I could sit. Like I don't actually mind, but like,
because I can just stare at the carpet pattern for a minute, like just kind of get my brain together.
And then once you're above the clouds could kind of look like ground, so you might have like the illusion of not really being as high as you are. If you don't think about it too deeply.
Like like flying up the dome and then out into no.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no. So okay, so then so they go above the clouds, so now it's no longer raining because they're above the rain. Amari is freezing. Horus closes his umbrella, sets it down to his bare feet, which is when Amari remembers her own wet feet, because remember, they do not have shoes on. Horus is like, a beautiful night. And Amari goes, I'm soaking and freezing. Which,
facts.
Peep the vision. Horus is like, so am I, but we're here to do what we're here to do won't take long, I promise. They're just very, like, he grins when he says it. He's like, yeah, isn't it great? Like
people find you charming because of your voice. You get away with a lot of crap because of your voice, don't you? I'm tired. I'm over it.
It's very funny. Like, I just they're just so chill. They're so chill. They could be not chill, So Amari is like, how can he be so calm when I'm halfway to becoming an Amari popsicle? She's not chill. But we find out that they're here to cast Constellations. He points to the stars above and says the constellations have been set for thousands of years, or tens of thousands of years. They describe the history of the planet itself, moving ever so slowly with the passage of time. Amari asks what they say, and Horus says, I have no idea. They're written in language long forgotten, but you are very young. Your constellation should be easy enough to figure out. So he has her hold out her hand. He reaches up, plucks a star right out of the sky, and drops the speck of twinkling light into her palm. And then he just basically keeps like plucking stars out and putting them in her hand. And then is like, once he's done, he says that should be plenty. With a broad swipe of his staff, he knocks loose the remaining stars from the sky. Which is just like, what? I'm sorry. I love this chapter. So Amari asks if she's really holding whole stars in her hand, and Horus explains it's not the stars themselves, but their spirits. Every natural thing exists in two places, both here and there. If we are physically here, then we are spiritually there. Likewise, if the stars are physically out there, then it only makes sense for them to be spiritually here. Do you understand? And Amari says, not really. But it did make me think of like it doesn't really make sense, but it kind of does in a way. Like it made me think of like the fact that obviously stars are suns that are however many billions of light years away, but we see them here and like, you know what I mean? Like we see like, I think we see their past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm, very not fully up on science, but from what I understand,
seeing the light that's already been projected out.
Exactly.
Like they may have already been dying. Like every star's already every star is dying.
Right.
What we see is already light that is dying.
It's already happened. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me then that he could pluck the spirits of those stars, even though they're not physically here. Like that makes sense.
Because the logic is very like, if either you're here or there, if they are there, then their spirit is here. And I'm like, I follow
sense.
that logic.
It makes sense as a scientifically and magically speaking. I'm not totally sure on like the other side with like humans, but I assume it's the same thing. But like just like the way that it's explained, I love and was just.
I feel like the only thing is that like for me, it's like for humans though, right? Like for people, for any sentient creature, yes, sometimes I am spiritually elsewhere, but physically in a place. But that's not always. So how do you make sense of that?
Right.
Whenever both things are present in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that's part of the study. That's why you got to study with Director Horus and get that knowledge.
And he would answer all of those questions. But we are not in this department.
We're just getting a glimpse of
we're just visitors with Amari. So Director Horus is like, well, if you wish to learn more about these things, you're more than welcome to come try out for my department next summer. It's been a century since a Moonstone badge has graced our doors, which I'm like, you know what? Take up his offer. Become a junior agent.
This is what I'm saying. Like, Amari over here putting down one department.
I'm like, my thing is like, pass the junior agent tryouts. Find Quentin. When you're done, next summer, come back, hit up Director Horus and be like, so what's good? I'm trying to try out for your department now.
Like you opened some thoughts that I want some answers to.
Yeah.
And maybe there's no answer, but I would like something. I would like to get a little bit further in my understanding of what's going on over here.
Exactly. And she's got like 6 years. She could do this with like plenty of departments.
You can just switch it up. You can I would love to like for this we were talking about this, I was like, I feel like for me, this is definitely like I know there were people who went to schools, like I know NYU like had it where you can kind of like build your own curriculum. I'm not one of those kids. I need some kind of structure. I would have I really did do well from having a structure behind it. But once I got to my ability to pick elective courses, I was very much like, if there was something that was of interest to me, I'm gonna like jot it down. And no matter what school or department it's part of, I'm gonna like go try it out. And that would be like my how I would go about doing an internship with the Bureau would be like, I think I'd probably do the Department of Unexplained. But because the Department of Unexplained is so closely tied in like, I guess like theory to this department, I'd be like, oh, can I take some time? Like this seems like it could be explained by fortune and like fortune telling. Can I like take some time to go learn about fortune telling? And be like, yeah. And so I just go like learn about fortune telling for like a couple of weeks and then come back out like, okay, so I don't have an explanation, but I have some better understanding about why this thing is unexplained or whatever.
Yep. So again, here comes Amari talking herself down, saying that her Moonstone's badge is only because she's a magician. And Horus is like, don't sell yourself short. From what I've heard, you've done quite well so far. Which again, we just need folks to keep telling her. Like
but like I'm like, this is my thing. Jaden just told her in like his smooth little 11, 12-year-old way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then here she is. Like at this point, she's like, because like she had a moment where she kind of like had that realization, like she's been comparing herself to Quentin, she needs to let that go. So she's like in a different mind space now than she has been the rest of the book about like bringing up the Moonstone thing. So now I'm just like, girl, you just want this dreamy voice man to tell you you're great. You're
You
just
know
like,
what?
I don't mind hearing that. I'm great from another person who has a cool voice. Like I'm cool
You
with
know
that.
what? I am not mad at that. um so they begin by looking at her history. To understand where you're going, we must first understand where your blood has been. So that is like very distinct definition of Sankofa, which I love that it's just like there and not, they say it and then move on. So he has her separate the stardust into 2 even piles on the carpet, and then gather the first pile of stardust, toss it high as she can, and jumping if it helps. So
Not on this
she
carpet. I'm not. Mm-mm.
right, like I'm not gonna jump, but I can,
I will fling it.
I'll fling it as
I
far
will
as I
LeBron.
can. Right, that's literally what it is. It's LeBron. So the glowing pile soars, exploding against the sky like fireworks, and then reforming into a woman in a elaborate headdress. Shifts into a crouching man with a spear lifted over his head. It changes again to a boy on the edge of a cliff, his gaze on the horizon. So these are her ancestors. Amari is descended from great African tribal queens, fierce warriors who protected the innocent, and renowned travelers who sought the thrill of adventure. Greatness, like all other traits, can be passed down in the blood from parent to child. The image shifts this time to a young girl on her knees before a man with a whip, changes to show men and women marching, even against the blast of a fire hose. And then Horus says, there's resilience in your blood too, the willpower to endure seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Though your ancestors were once slaves, their descendants fought for equal rights. And then Amari sees Mama's face in the starlight, smiling.
Wait,
oh, yeah.
because that sentence is important. I don't want to skip that sentence.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you're right. So at the site, Amari holds her chin high. Which, yeah, is super important. It's like, I think it's also I was like gonna wait till I finish, but let's do it now. I think it's really great in this moment too, because of like how she's coming back to the bureau, and like after having dealt with this hate crime, after having like had doubts about whether she should return, whether she belongs here, coming back immediately, having that confrontation with Lara, it just is like another reinforcement that like she can do this, and like can find her brother, can like become a junior agent, like can make herself belong in the bureau, because she comes from people who have done that, for her to be where she is at this moment. Yeah, I just
But I
think
also think it gives her like she's not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's not on this journey alone. Like there are people who were alive and who have gone through similar, not the same, but similar things that seemed like as he said insurmountable, and were able to push on, and that's how Amari was able to be here, is because they pushed through those moments and those obstacles. And so Amari is continuing a legacy of people who have had to have their own similar kind of responses to things that have been barriers. Like you were saying, to like where the bureau is like putting up obstacles and barriers to her. So I think especially in this moment where she doesn't have Quentin, and she's coming back from people showing like direct hate to her, she's seeing that like not only from the department kids being like, okay, like it's just she's coming with us on the elevator, and then like cheering her on as she's flying out of this department room.
Right.
Like so not only is it just like like kids that she hasn't had interacted with, or like rooting her on and like cheering for her, but also like the people that she comes from, they're part of her, they're on the journey with her. So even though those what they contributed may have happened in the past, it lives on through her, and so she's not doing it alone, really, ever.
Mm-hmm.
She feels that way from time to time.
Yeah, absolutely. So then Amari sees her mom's face, smiling as she holds a baby in her arms. She holds her breath at the sight of Quentin's proud face as he loads the briefcase that started all this. These are the people who know you best, says Director Horus. You've been greatly loved. Amari's chin quivers and she says, I love them too. So then Horus notices there's not a single magician in her family history. Um, the stars wink out, and he says, "This is the history of your magic, Amari, completely blank, as if the magic truly began with you. Fascinating." So she is a born magician, though Horus doesn't have any idea what that will mean for her. So now they're moving on to the present and future. She casts the second.
Amari is not the first of her name. Like, may not be the first of her name, but she's the first of her talent.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Um, so she casts the second pile of stardust. There's another explosion of white light and a twinkling bird takes form. The bird represents her, and as she is right in this moment, it hasn't yet taken flight. Its wings are outstretched, its head turned upward. The pose suggests that Amari is capable of becoming truly special and reaching great heights. But then they see the head of a snake emerge. The creature winds itself through the legs of the bird, coiling up around it. And then a much larger two-headed snake appears. Amari jumps when its heads bare their fangs. Instead of backing down, the smaller snake shows its fangs too. Director Horus says that he's seen this snake before during his own castings in the Wandering Isles. It's why he cut his trip short to return. So he waves the staff in the sky. The stars swirl above them. The image of a mighty elephant appears. It represents the entire bureau. And seconds later, a two-headed snake coils itself around the elephant's leg. It waits there for a moment before climbing up the elephant's neck, where it strikes, bringing the animal to its knees. Snakes have typically represented magicians in the constellations, chiefly for their potential to do great harm to the caster. But Amari didn't appear as a snake, likely because it's her own casting. But he doesn't really know what the two-headed snake represents. Whatever the case, it seems that Amari and the Bureau have a common enemy. Amari is guessing that it's Moreau and the Apprentice, but and Horus like agrees, but he's also like leaving it open. He's like, there's a lot that isn't clear. There's also the smaller snake that sought to protect her, and he's like, I don't suppose you have any idea who that magician might be. Amari thinks it's Dylan, but doesn't say so because she doesn't want to give away his secret. So Horus is like, I need to inform the chief about what we've witnessed tonight. But she gets to stay. He's pretty much like, clearly, y'all, we have a common enemy. Like, you need to be protected, which I think is a great step forward, because up until this point, it's just been like, we're watching you, but not we're like making sure you're okay. You know what I mean? And making sure you're not in danger. So I think that that's great. He also says that she likely shouldn't go home for breaks anymore because of that. And then Amari asks, like, what if she fails a tryout? And Horus is like, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Drastic measures would need to be taken. Whatever this two-headed snake represents, it's taken an interest in you, Amari, and that appears to be a very dangerous position to occupy. So before they go back, she makes sure to asks her question about Quentin. And Horus says that Quentin came to him about reading the future, but not his own, which is why he had to refuse. Unless it's an emergency, he can never reveal the future of one person to another. And Amari asks if he was asking about her future, but it turns out Quentin was asking about Maria's future and wanted to know if she would ever betray the Bureau. Bum, bum, bum.
I love that he's like, I'm not going to tell anybody, like, someone else's, like, fortune, but I will tell you what someone asked about somebody else's fortune.
Yeah. I feel like it gives, it answers, whether you have the question or not, it does answer something, which is like, you know, Quentin and Maria's relationship was not as perfect as like everyone else might think.
And I think that it leaves Amari, like if we count down Amari's clues so far, what we know solidly is that, because she did do like a kind of roundup, that she thinks that they may have been, that the Moreau may have been asking for the Black Book. We know that Vanquish probably found something that they shouldn't have, and that's why they are missing right now. And now she knows that Quentin has some level of suspicion of Maria.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what Amari's gonna do with those clues. I mean, I do know, but now that Amari has those clues, like, what is she gonna be able to do with that information, and how helpful is that gonna be to her further investigation and trying to figure out where Quentin went?
Yep. Tight. So, who is your MVP?
My MVP. Okay, so I made a point to come back to that sentence about Amari lifting her head up after hearing about her family's legacy and her ancestors, because I found that whole passage very important to include in a middle grade level book.
Yeah.
Specifically for like where kids are at this age, and especially like Black kids who I don't know. One of the things that like lingers with me, and was something that happened in high school, but I think it can happen at any age, was like in a history class, um, this white kid asked this, overbearing question of like, well, why didn't the slaves revolt? Kind of thing. And I think that when you're in a middle grade, you start getting more history of that time period, of the antebellum period and Civil War. And it, like, I think that when it's not taught with a deeper understanding of this, of all the factors of it, it leads off with Black kids having a bad understanding of like who were people who were enslaved, what were they dealing with, what was that. So I love that, like, in like this middle grade fantasy book, we're having a moment where we're like, you're seeing a Black kid get a fortune, like being able to look back into their legacy and have pride, and their ancestors being like living and surviving and being able to resist and have resilience. And so I love that Director Horus, like a dark-skinned Black man with a magical voice, is the one who's bringing this to Amari. So I definitely made him my MVP,
Yeah.
not only because of like again the dress code for the department, and like how like if he's the one who's like building up these directors, and he's like being really open and allowing the people who like looking out for the benefit of people's like mental health and all that kind of stuff, and then also like looking for protection for Amari, like looking out for her in ways that other adults have not so far. But also this moment, this particular moment that was his whole point of having this time with her, was to showcase to her family's legacy, is super important. I love that that was part of his practice. And he introduced that to her, and it's just such a heartfelt thing that had I had it at a middle grade, it would have like had my chin up too. And I'm hoping that
Yeah.
other kids that age come pick up this book and read that passage, and they put their chins as well, because they may not know who those people were, but in reading a Mari story, it hopefully helps you to like wonder about and think about the people who were resisting, who lived so that you could live now. So I made him, as well as, I believe, this one I'm looking at. Um, Oh, the closet. I also made the closets my MVP. I guess so. And whoever is, and because I'm sure this is a bureau job, whoever is the one who's maintaining the closets throughout the dormitories in the bureau, because I know that like January says she made her own clothes, and a lot of kids make their own clothes, but the stuff has to come from somewhere, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's the closet. And so I'm just like loving that, like, if I had the ability to just like look at my closet, like I wouldn't have so many clothes. I would just look at my closet and be like, today I feel like wearing this, and then it would just be there, and it would just be so like
Be great.
great. I just love it so much. And to see the kids like fully living out their full dramatic selves through fashion is just inspiring. So I found both Director Horus and the closet's ability to manifest these like big fashion dreams was inspiring to me this chapter.
Agreed. I also made Horus my MVP, just like basically for all the reasons you said. Like the culture of the Department of Good Fortunes and Bad Omens is great, and he's also just seems like he's like such a nice guy and like very chill and not, um swayed by other people's like prejudices and that kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, he's a nice dude. I think that Amari should try out for that department next summer.
I think she needs to take a moment from like that whole thing of like not comparing herself to Quentin and really like
do something different. Like
run through the same stuff that Quentin did. Like
yeah.
what if something else is speaking to her that Quentin didn't do? Like try that out.
Yeah. Who is benched?
I think we both mentioned the same person.
Yeah, Lara.
It
She's
was
got
just
to
like
go.
a samesies.
She
Like F Lara.
remains the worst and has to go.
And I was so annoyed when Amari had the sentiment that like, because like Dylan, I'm rolling my eyes, but you can't see this podcast. When Dylan had his moment where he was like, "Yeah, I'm just so happy that my mom and sister weren't there because like they definitely like attacked the side of the mansion where Laura's room is," and Amari was like internally like, oh, I would never wish for, even though we've had our issues, I would never wish for Laura to get hurt. And I was just like, no, Amari, like that girl would have no qualms if you got hurt. Like you could be dead in the street and she'd just be like, oh, she'd just step over you because she does not care. So you having that level of like empathy for someone who would like literally step over your dead body, like I need you to like this niceness, this kindness, it's nobody's worth that level of kindness when they're acting this way to you. I need you to let that go. So I was a little annoyed at Amari, but the annoyance comes from like how much I dislike Lara.
Yeah.
And like how much like Lara is just an awful person.
She's horrible. She's really horrible.
And that's something else I wanted to know. It's very sus. And this is like for the clues for like how whatever the magicians who are involved in like spreading these attacks. It's very suspicious to me that conveniently it's only the old bureau families who got attacked. And so that calls for a level of like recognition of like where those people live. And like not everyone has like access to know where all these people live and all that kind of stuff. But because of the way that it's like they're the only ones who are attacked, then it calls into question like, oh, is it someone who's not from these families who's attacking them? But for me, it's like not one, that question of access, and two, and knowledge, and two, the ability to like pull it out. So for them, it seems like they're trying to set Amari or someone else who is not from an old bureau family up because it's like, oh, someone who's not of the system is trying to attack the system.
Right.
And I don't appreciate that it's trying to like set Amari up for like take the downfall for something she really can't. Like how would she know? How would she be part of that, right? So whenever Kirsten came out of here talking that crap, I'm like, y'all, like, I feel like the parents are always to blame, but the parents must be having these discussions where these kids are coming out of here and blaming stuff on Amari, and I don't like that that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely like, but it's in a way, it's like kind of framing her, but then also as that's happening, I think that the folks at the Bureau are becoming less suspicious of her at the same time. Which, you know what I mean? At least from like, we've seen this episode or this chapter of like Horus kind of still being like, we'll see what it says. And then afterwards being like, okay, no, you just need extra protection. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it just feels like they're, that part is not necessarily going the way the person is hoping, or like the apprentice is hoping.
Yeah, I like there's more like for the director to like push for her to have this special meeting with Horus right after these attacks. I don't feel like that is like a thing that just came out of nowhere, that like because Horus tries to say like, oh, she just is an Atlantean, so they are naturally suspicious of two things happening at the same time. But I'm like, nah, we all know this hybrid attack happened like yesterday, so she probably needs to like calm down. Director Van Helsing was like, you know what? How about we have Horus check into it, and if Horus is a problem, then maybe it's a problem. Like I feel like it's like one of those like preventative measures to keep the Van Helsings of the Bureau out of Amari, like blaming Amari.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this chapter. I don't remember what happens after this, but that was a great time. I literally at this point I'm like vibes. I remember like I have like vague memories of like certain scenes, but I don't remember. There's like a scene that I thought happened before this. You know what I mean? Like I don't know the order anymore. I'm just like, who knows? But
I think when it is like this is the scene that I think is it this edition of the book? It's either this edition or my other edition of the book. Oh, yeah, it's this edition. They have the opening page to the book is an image of Amari sitting and Director Horus sitting on a magic carpet.
Oh, I love it.
And it's so cute. And I just feel like it's such an impactful chapter that I think that even like the publishers were like, oh yeah, we're gonna put that in the front. We put it in the front of the book and we don't get to it so that
it's the best. It's the best. And I can't believe I forgot about it. Like I remembered that she met Horus, but I didn't remember anything about it really. And I'm like, how could I forget? It's so like just wonderful. It's 10. And
it's like such great timing for like where she is mentally.
Yeah. Love it.
BB Alston, we love your writing. Good job, sir.
You know?
Speaking of loving BB Alston's writing, if you love BB Alston's writing and this book as well as listening to us, then you can join us again as we come back for chapter 24 next week.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, let us know what your outfit would be, like what makes you happiest. And again, you can let us know on social media, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can respond in the app, and then we'll see it and we can talk about it on the episode. Wizard Team is brought to you by Black Nerds Create. If you want to keep up with our other content, you can by checking out our website at blacknerdscreate.com, following us on Twitter at BLKNerdsCreate, at Yana Wrote It, at Robyn_Rambles, and at Porshèa. And then follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Black Nerds Create. Subscribe to our monthly magic newsletter, and don't forget to rate and review. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for joining us.